Unfortunately, you can't poke me with pins through. I'm really glad that that's on the recording too. I'm really glad that that made the recording. All right. Well, good morning, afternoon, whatever time of day it is when you're watching this. Thank you so much for choosing to participate in today's session. As I said, we're recording it for distribution later on, so if there are other coworkers that you have that couldn't attend this morning, no problem. I'll be sending this out hopefully before the end of the day today. I'm going to do some light editing to it, so if you have questions of more private nature, don't feel bad about asking. I will go through and edit all this stuff before it gets posted. I just want to thank you guys for being here. I know that there are 10,000 different things to do every day right now, and it seems like we keep adding more, but I really appreciate being here. We will get to run over some of this stuff in the first session of the conference, but it's going to be quite a bit more condensed, so I'm going to keep pointing people to this video as we get into the conference, just for more details and insights. Most importantly, if you guys do have any questions following up on today's session or at any time during the conference, you can always reach me. I'm Steve Thomas, Google at campusstores.ca, as it says down below my name there. You can reach me through either Google at campusstores.ca if it's not quite so urgent. You can always phone me at 1-888-288-4044 or 403-288-7225, or you can get me through chat. The best way to get a hold of me during the conference is going to be through chat. Just that's the one I'm going to answer most immediately. So use chat. That'll be an ongoing theme today, is use chat. So let's... Oh, I know. Yep. We'll turn it a little further down. I figured that you all wanted to listen to my background music. So let's get started with actually getting into the conference. So you guys can see my screen here. I'm hoping, sorry, I'm not actually looking at the yes, you can see my screen. Great. So you guys can see my screen here. This is just a regular campusstores.ca website. The best and first way to get to the conference is to sign into MemberSpace, which you could always do by clicking on this little button here in the top right-hand corner. I would suggest this is the worst way of doing it, but you can definitely do it this way. The better way of doing this is to make sure that you have Google Chrome installed. Our conference is built entirely off of Google's workspace architecture, so it works best in Google Chrome. You can do it with anything. You don't have to use Google Chrome. You don't have to use any Google stuff to get through to the conference, but parts of the conference don't work properly when you're not signed in. Getting signed in the best way probably is to come up here. So this is again in Google Chrome. Greg, if you could post that link that I threw in chat into the into the chat for the meeting, that would be cool. You can always just Google downloading Chrome and it'll take you to Chrome. But once we're in Google Chrome, I'm just going to come up here to the top right hand corner. You can see right now that I'm signed into my personal account. You most likely will have some sort of personal Google account, and if you don't, you can always add a new account once you've signed into Google. You can see that I have multiple accounts on here. What I'm going to do if I'm you, and I don't already have my little CSC one, is I can actually just add an account, click sign in, and then I'm going to sign in with my Campus Stores user identity. So this is going to be first name dot last name at campusstores.ca. From there, if you don't remember what your password is, which there's a good chance based off of the emails I've gotten over the last few days, you don't, no problem. You can just sign in by typing in the email address given to you. So since I'm Google at campusstores.ca, I'll type in Google at campusstores.ca. I can click the forgot password button here and it'll just go through. It'll ask you what your work email is. Give it your work email. It'll send the password reset. If that's not working for you, no problem. Just send me a message. Again, Google at campusstores.ca. I'll get a hold of it and I'll do the password reset for you. It typically takes about a minute to get done. So not a big deal if you can't get it that way. Once you have completed the sign in here, so you've got your password and all the rest of it done, you should end up in a screen that looks something like this. You'll notice this looks different than my standard one. So on my personal account, it looks different than when I'm inside of CSC. The biggest differences are when I click on here, it tells me that I'm inside of CSC. But from now on, when I'm inside of CSE, I can go to the conference and everything should work properly. So all I'm going to do is go to conference.campusstores.ca. If I could type, that would be super duper. And I'm here. This is the conference. Or rather, it is a way to get to the conference. It's the easiest way. From here, you can go and travel through the vendor fair. You can see what the agenda is on the docket. Cool. Most of the things that you need for the conference are here. If you don't want to sign in, if you don't want to use any of the tools that we've given you, that's fine. This is the way to get to the conference. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to pause every once in a while and ask if anybody has any questions. So far, does anybody have any questions about getting signed in, knowing that most of you have gotten into this without much of an issue? Any questions? No? All right. Cool. Let's keep going. So that is one way to get into the conference. Again, it is the way that is going to most likely get you there with no hassles, with no extras. But once we're inside of CSE, this is actually the way easier way to do this. Come into campusstores.ca. You can either type in at the top, just mail.google.com, or you can come over here to the Google Apps button, or you can touch the Gmail button. All of these will get you into your inbox. The reason why we want to be in our inbox in the conference is because this has way more tools for it and is a way more compact way of seeing everything that is happening inside of CSE. And especially during the conference, there's way more stuff happening. I'm going to go over some of the tools really quickly that are in here. If there are questions, just hold them for a second. I'm going to stop and ask every few minutes if anybody's got questions, so we're good. Starting in the top left, we have the main menu button. All it does is expand and collapse our fun main menu here. You can also just hover over any of this stuff and it opens and closes it. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. Gmail button just does Gmail stuff. It just refreshes the page. It's not particularly interesting. What is interesting is search. So when I'm logged into Campus Stores, this is member space, so I am using all of member space. If I'm looking at a presentation and somebody says an interesting question and I want to know more about them, cool. For example, Carrie's here right now, so I'm going to look up Carrie. It'll start giving me more information about who Carrie is. It'll tell me every time that I've sent a lot of invitations to Carrie, because that's what happens when you're me. But say I wanted to know if Carrie has ever sent me something with an attachment. Well, I have sent a lot of things to Carrie with an attachment. What type of attachments? I can say PDFs. If it starts running out of results that exist inside of your inbox already, it'll actually start going out and finding things inside of Google Drive. I apologize. I live in a house with 4 dogs, so they're going to do this sometimes. I'm surprised it took us 10 minutes to get to dogs barking. But this will also work for, say, vendors. So if I wanted to look up DGN, or if I could spell that correctly. So if I wanted to look up DGN and see what has been shared with me, it'll show me everything that I've ever done with DGN. Again, this is more important when we start looking for attachments or we start looking for videos that we may have together, or this all gets populated immediately. You'll also notice that it comes up with things called chats and spaces. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that's essentially search. Google's really, really good at search. Trust in search. Don't go looking through email. I find Gmail confusing. Use search. Just use search. Search is great. Google is good at search. Okay. We can talk. This is the active button. This is just your status, so you can set it to a custom status. When you're inside of a meeting and you're not me, it automatically shows you as set to do not disturb, so it doesn't automatically start giving you more and more notifications and stuff when you're already inside of a meeting that you have scheduled in your calendar. The next button over here is support. If for some reason during the conference you're having a whole bunch of issues and I am on fire and not answering you at that point in time, cool. Touch the search button and start looking for help. It's all based again on Google search. It is the largest search or largest help database on the internet that has answers. It is better than Microsoft at actually answering questions because they hire 1,000 people to answer questions in every major language that they operate in. So cool. There is the settings button. We're going to not talk about the settings button. If you want to touch the settings button and play with the settings, that's on you. Go for it. You can try it out. It'll be fun. Apps. We've already sort of talked about the apps button, but this is another way to navigate to all the stuff that's inside of the conference. So if I wanted to go to meetings and stuff like that, or go to the sessions, I can come to calendar. If I wanted to chat with other people inside of CSE, I can always touch the chat button. If I wanted to learn more about people, I could always go to contacts, but we can do all of those things inside of CSE. And the most important thing that shows that you are still inside of CSE is this little thing in the top right. So this button up here, it shows that you are inside of your CSE. If you do not see that while you are in your inbox, you most likely are not inside of CSE. Google Chrome will always try and revert to the user that is signed in. That sounds kind of weird, but when you are in Chrome, it is trying to give you a Google account all the time. It will revert to whatever it thinks your primary Google account is constantly. And you will need to sign in again and again and again, and it'll send you to the wrong place, and it'll sign you out all the time. It's best if you just sign in using a separate Chrome profile and stay inside of CSE throughout the conference. You don't have to. Again, you don't have to, but it is best. Are there any? My window a little bit smaller so that it's just operating. Can you see it now, Louisa? I can. Yeah, no problem. Sorry that it wasn't there before. Any other questions or comments or anything before we keep going? Because I'm happy to answer them as we go. All right, then we're going to keep going. Neat. Down the left-hand side, and this is really, or sorry, right-hand side. Down the right-hand side, this is really where we start getting into the conference. So we have our calendar, keep, tasks, and contacts. This is really where we're going to be doing the majority of the stuff for the conference. So you can see here, I actually have the conference schedule inside of my inbox. So next week, we are up to next Monday. We have the members welcome, keynote, vendor fair. This is the majority of the stuff that you're going to be doing as far as going to sessions. And it's why I say being inside of your inbox is going to be the richest experience for the conference. Because all I have to do is just click on whatever the next meeting is and join with Google Meet. Now, the great thing about the conference is though it looks like it's all separate sessions, it's all just one meeting. It's all the same place over and over and over again. And it's actually where we are right now. So the URL that we are currently in, so if you look at the top of my screen here, this URL would join me back into this conference. I'm not going to do that because it produces an enormous amount of feedback. And though that's fun for me, it's probably not for everyone else. So I won't do that. But just know that if nothing else, you can copy that URL that's at the top of the screen. That'll take you to every session that we run. Every single session on the calendar is in the same place. The other things that we have in here is Keep. Keep is great for taking notes. You can also navigating in and out of the notes as well as your calendar can always be done by clicking on open a new tab. So that's just, again, up at the top here. There's always open a new tab. And because it's Google, there's search for almost everything. So you open a new tab and you can do cool things like have notes that you tag other people in on. So if you're working with your team and you want to follow up on something, you can just tag team members. And again, this works within Google Workspace, so I can access literally anybody else who's inside of Campus Stores Canada. So anybody who has a Campus Stores Canada email address. This includes all of our vendors. So if I wanted to say bring Jim Gartner in on this, I could type in jim.gartner and it would let me fill that in and he would be able to see these notes and collaborate with us. So if you have things like catalogs and stuff like that that you have questions about, it's one way that you guys can keep this sort of stuff straight. The vendors have already had a presentation similar to this where we have talked about how we want you guys to keep in contact with them during the conference. So they're expecting this sort of stuff as well. So it's not like this will come out of left field or that they'll just never see it. They've been told, they've been warned. Tasks. This is an individual task list. This is the only one that you can actually tag outside people. We'll talk about how to tag other people in tasks. And then contacts. Again, this is a search. So everybody that you can think of, if I wanted to talk to Alan Madsen and see what was going on, oh, Alan's from York. Okay, he works at York University. I have a direct phone number for him. You guys gave me all this information when we got you all signed up. Sometimes the phone numbers work, sometimes they don't. It also shows you all your recent interactions. So I could go and make this more embarrassing and show you what Greg and I talk about when you're not around, but I'm gonna not do that for right now. The other thing that you can do is you can also add other add-ons. There's all sorts of outside stuff. Some of this stuff I have blocked just because I don't trust a lot of the stuff that's in this app store, but if you want to add stuff, add it, and it just flags me in whether or not. It takes about a minute for me to click the yes or whatever, add it. So you can also add things like all of the Microsoft stuff that you're used to also works in this. You can just add OneNote and OneDrive to Google because that's apparently a thing. But yeah, that takes us through the right-hand side of the screen there. And you're probably starting to wonder, okay, but where are all the vendors? Excellent question, hypothetical person. So if I go into Vendor Fair and I'm signed in, I can go and see all the vendors. It's kind of normal. You would sort of expect this. The big things that you can do with vendors is you can go into the Meet Right Now, and it literally opens a meeting. Now, if this were one of the Vendor Fair times, your vendor would already show up. It would say that there is somebody here. You just join now, and now you're in a meeting with them. So this is the equivalent of, say, walking down the aisleway and seeing that Alpha Brothers doesn't have any in the booth. I'm gonna hop in, talk with them for a couple minutes, and then keep on rolling. The other thing that you can do is, since you are Campus Stores Canada members, if you're signed in with your campusstores.ca email address, you can come here and start booking appointment slots with them. So all of the vendors have appointment slots. So this will automatically overlay what you are doing during the conference. So everybody's invited to all the conference sessions right now. If you say don't care about going to McGraw's presentation because you are a general merchandise buyer, cool, let's book my appointment with Alpha Broder here. I just click on book. I can say other things if I want to. I can put in descriptions, but if I just click save, it saves that time for everybody. So it automatically creates the meeting for both of you. Everybody is invited. It's up to them to respond with whether or not they actually can take that meeting. But as soon as I've taken that meeting, you'll notice it no longer exists. So that time slot is now out of their calendar. So you guys aren't trying to overlay with one another. Okay. Every single vendor has this possibility. You can book your meetings right now. Again, you don't technically have to be signed in with a campusstores.ca ID to actually book these meetings. It's just that it doesn't show up. So I'll show you really quickly. If I'm not signed in, and this is where it starts to break down. So I'm back into my personal account again. If I go to the meetings, apparently Alpha Broder set it up so that I can see it from the outside. Some of them are going to have stuff where it is invisible from the outside, but you'll also see that my conference schedule is gone and all the rest of it. So there are certain vendors that will have more information, some that have less. Some of them, let's go with somebody who I know has a whole bunch of stuff. So this is SRPs. You'll see things like when you're not signed in, you will see things like you need access. So there are going to be things that are stored inside of our drive that have sensitive pricing information that are just blocked off. If during the conference you make a request from an outside email address, you now all know my personal email address and can make fun of 13-year-old Steve who signed up for it later. If I try to sign in with an outside email address, it doesn't even come to me during the conference. It literally just automatically deletes or sends those emails into a deep spam folder that I will not be looking at. So if you need access to something, please sign in first. If you still can't get it to go, email google@campusstores.ca and I will try and get to it as soon as I possibly can. You guys will see there's lots of stuff in here. Lots of them have pricing information. Lots of them have catalogs. Some of them have videos and stuff like that too. So do take your time, go through. If you wander into a booth, so the scenario that I was talking about before, where I just wandering through the conference, I want to talk to Alpha Broder. I show up here and it's like, oh, there's somebody in there. You can still get in contact with them. It's not a problem. All I have to do is I'm going to come back to my inbox. If I can pull up my inbox, well, I'll just go back. There we go. So I can come into my inbox and I'll just start a chat. Okay, I don't know who Alpha Broder is, but if I type in Alpha Broder, oh, I haven't set it up for Alpha Broder yet. So let's say I want to talk to Tom Lamb. It's going to give me the opportunity to, oh, I can now chat with Tom Lamb and say, hey, busy? And now it'll just send him a message. Because we're instructing them to be in their inbox as well, it'll actually show him as being online. I can show a little bit better live demonstration. Hey, Greg. Greg is marked as away right now because he's inside of a meeting, so he's not going to get, there you go. It pings through to me, so I get the little thing saying that I've got somebody who sent me a message. You get the same thing too. You also get reminders for your calendar and all the rest of it because I'm always on active. I get more notifications than you would probably notice. And since Greg and I are talking, it's showing to me that he is now active. So that's chat. Spaces is basically, oh, you can also set up group chats. So if you want to be in a conversation with everybody who isn't me, so you can make fun of me during this presentation, you can literally start typing everybody that you can see inside of the presentation and add them all to a super cool group chat. And you guys can all roast me in the group chat while I'm sitting here unable to see that you are doing it. That's fine. But you can also do it with your team members. So instead of saying Mike Clark, if I wanted to add everybody from UBC, I type in UBC. It now takes me to 24 members and I can start having a group chat. Other than I can't type. So the other thing that I can do is I can have spaces. So spaces are a little bit more robust than group chat. Group or the chat function is going to be great for one-on-one because when I'm inside of, say, this presentation, like when I'm inside of Meet, it's always one-to-many. If I want to do a one-on-one, that's where we go to chat. If I'm in spaces, I now have the ability not only to have a space with myself and my colleagues, I can start sharing files into that chat. So unlike group chat, in spaces I can share files. I can also start assigning tasks to group members. So I can say, have fun. And then I can add or assign it to other people. So I can either assign it to myself or I can start assigning it to Jenny or Zach or whoever, Louisa, whoever else is inside of UBC that I need to have do things during the conference or outside of the conference because this stuff exists 365 days a year. So it's not just now, it's forever and ever. Carrie, I will see why it's not sharing that thing with you. That's weird. I will look at that in a minute. Lastly on this side, we also have Meet, which we're all inside of Meet right now. So before I talk more about the Meet settings, are there any questions about what I've gone over so far? Carrie, I have a feeling that the reason it's not sharing properly with you is because I have you as a board member as opposed to a conference delegate. So I can fix that for the board here in a minute. No questions? We should talk about Conference 22. Conference 22 exists. So this is our area. Thank you, Carrie, for sending gifts. I appreciate it. This is a good space for us to talk about things. Just it is a little bit more robust than being inside of the group email. The group email is great. The biggest difference between spaces and being in the group email address, the conference22@campusstores.ca, is that it is threaded conversations. So we can all keep sending memes to one another and it just stays contained to one thread as opposed to spilling out into the ether. You guys can join this. So if you go back into your campusstores.ca email, you will see that there is an invite to this space and you can join Becky, Janelle, Stephen Krybar, Emily, Anita, all of the people who have already decided to be a part of this place. And you can also ask me questions, put in new dialogue, have conversations that surround topics in the conference or outside of the conference if you want to. Thank you for the reminder, Greg. Let's talk about Meet. If there aren't any questions. All right, we're a real silent group. I kind of wish I had background music again. Too bad I turned that off for myself. So inside of Meet, I'm just going to talk about the controls real quick because I think most of you have already figured it out or have had some experience with it. But mute for voice, mute for video, raise hand. Everybody raise hands so that we can all raise hands. There we go. Great. So the best thing about raise hands is you can raise them, you can lower them yourself. It also shows up in order. So it shows up from first to last on the side. So if you have a question during a presentation, we're going to ask that you try and use the raise hand feature. We'll also talk about the other one that we're using, that we're going to be using throughout the conference as far as posting Q&As so that we have questions for our presenters and we can stay organized. We have the Present Now button. You guys shouldn't need to do this, but if at some point in time you do find yourself accidentally needing to present things to your colleagues, this is the Present Now button. If you need to share anything that has video or audio in it, the best one by far is to have it open in a Chrome tab and then share from there. It works in other browsers. It works best in Chrome. You can't share audio at all unless it is inside of a Chrome tab. So that's just a thing. That's how that works. Thank you, Greg. You are better at this than I am. I don't know why I'm doing this presentation. Next up is options. There's lots of options. You guys can go ahead and play with all the options, change your background so that you're on a beach or in a snowy McGill, or I don't know, you're blurred out. There's lots of blurring going on. I'm just calling off the popular ones. The other one that is really important in here is closed captioning. So it is Google's actual voice capture system. It is incredibly robust because they trained it on billions and billions of hours of YouTube. It does a really good job of translating stuff as well as just providing closed captions. So you can see I've turned it on in English. It's going to actually try and put in all of the weird grammar that I'm going to use, and the run-on sentences are going to drive it nuts. But you can see that it's actually working down along the bottom. I'm going to turn that off because it's annoying to me. Again, the next button is hang up. I'm not going to do that because I will be leaving the call, and that's not what any of us need. The other thing that we can talk about is the I button. So when you find yourself in meetings, any of our meetings where we have attachments to them, so whether it's a presentation or it's catalogs with a vendor or whether it's any sort of attachments that we receive for the conference, those will always be attached directly into the conference or into the Meet itself. So from here, you can always go and take a look at whatever we've sent for attachments. So in this case, we have the exactly what you'd think, the how to use or how to categorize your communication using Gmail. So all of that stuff, anything that gets attached to a meeting shows up here, including meeting descriptions and all the rest of it. Everybody, so this is a good way when you're inside of a meeting and either don't know the people who are with you or you want to catch who it was that said that interesting thing so that you can chat with them one-on-one. Cool. If you come in here, you'll see everybody that's actually involved in the meeting, and you can one-off click on them, see who they are, get more information. You can pin them to screen when they're doing something and you want to investigate whether or not Dave Smith is currently asleep. He's not, by the way, currently asleep. So, and then we get into, I'm going to skip activities because we'll talk about that. That's kind of the whole point of this. We'll skip that for now. Host controls, you guys won't see this very often. If you do happen to see it, it just makes it so whether or not you can turn on mute or auto turn on mute when people enter into the conference, and a couple of other host controls. It's not really going to be something you guys are going to be using or even seeing. So let's talk about activities. Sometimes we'll be using breakout rooms. Generally, when we're using breakout rooms during the conference, we're actually going to just be putting you guys in separate rooms or be giving you guys links to a different room. I'm not normally going to be using breakout rooms unless we decide that we want to break up to have smaller conversations at random. That's just the way that's going to be. Some of our presenters will have polling questions. So if you ever see the poll, it first comes up in chat and you can just go and click on the poll and answer the poll. Again, that's all under the activities button here. Q&A, this is how we're hoping to sort our questions for for presenters. So if you have a question and they're in the middle of a presentation, it's a good practice to just go in, start writing out your question, and submit it. So how's everyone doing? The other cool thing about having these questions is that if you like the question and you really want the presenter to answer it, cool. You can tell the moderators in each session that you like that question by giving it the little thumbs up, and that'll move it further up the list. So there is a voting system for this. You can give it the little upvotes. It gets further and further up the list. If there are other questions that come up, I'm really hoping that somebody asks a different question so we can outvote my paltry 3 updoots. If somebody else wants to write a question, we can all give them a thumbs up so that it goes over top, overwrites. Oh, we're so close. I'm hoping somebody's writing. Who's glad Steve turned off the music? Thanks, Lisa. I'll give that one an update. I'm glad for that. Yeah, see, there you go. So now that it's over top of it, in a second here, it'll override. And that's just how we're going to keep questions coming to our presenters. So it's a good one to check back in on every once in a while. If you're having a question, or if you think there is a better question to be asked, cool. That's Q&A. That's how we're going to try and keep that stuff organized during the conference. I did skip over chat. We'll talk about that for 1 second here. Chat inside of Meet is always one-to-many because our one-on-one and one-to-group ones are inside of our inbox, okay? It is always one to everyone. Just be aware that when you are sending chat inside of the Meet, it is one to everyone. I will not be recording anything that is in chat, so if you put it in chat, it's not going to make the recordings, it's not going to make the rounds on the internet or something like that, but just know that it's not also being captured or recorded throughout the conference. The last one in here, inside of activities, is our whiteboard. Whiteboards are great, especially if you want to use them for meeting with vendors. Yeah, sure, you guys can have access to this. Normally we require people to have access to that. It'll show up in chat for you guys now that everybody gets invited to this whiteboard. It is a collaborative surface. So just like you would do with a regular whiteboard, we can take things like catalogs and I can circle and make notes on them. We can also add multiple catalog pages. So we can go through, say what we like, what we don't like, what colors, fabrics, styles, that sort of stuff. You can go through and find individual stuff. You can either create these on your own, or we are also encouraging all of our vendors to try and get to this stuff. They may or may not get to it before the conference, but this is a really great way of at least, yep, we got people. At least it's a stick person. I'm glad it's a stick person and not something else. But yeah, you guys can use this as a great place to sort of keep those ideas going and make those ideas happen. It's a really good tool for collaboration. It is way deeper than it looks on the surface, but I'm only going to give it a surface level overview today. Are there any questions about how to use Google Meet? All right, well, before we all take off this afternoon, again, I thank you all for being here. I'm going to just display, if you want to pin me again, you can see all of the top tips one more time. This is the top tips for the conference in no particular order. So stay in your inbox, log in once, be in there. It's literally the best way for you to get all the notifications, see interaction, see when new files are shared with you and all the rest of it. Actively seek answers. Go out and ask people things, ask your fellow delegates, ask vendors things, use chat to do it. If you don't find them in chat, let me know. I'll help you find people because it's important that we use this platform as much as possible to communicate during the conference or outside of the conference, but using this platform to communicate means that the communication stays localized and secure, and it's also a lot easier on some of the stuff. I know that it's never going to replace your regular inbox, but especially during the conference, it's probably the fastest way to stay up to date. And find your community. Build stuff. There is an infinite number of things that we can do with this. We started up the user groups for Bookware 3000, CEI, all that stuff. Was just somebody said, hey, is there a group email where I can talk to or ask everybody else a question about this? And I was like, it can be. That started up last conference. We have our like general mail groups and stuff like that for, general merchandise or for books. We can add any of that stuff at any point in time. It literally takes seconds of my day, and I'm happy to do it. If you guys want to find your community, make your community however you want to do it. This is a place and a good time to do it, and it exists forever. So you can become conference friends and then stay friends instead of just going back to your individual institutions. So that's all I got. If there are any more questions, I would love to hear them. Just realized you have more hair than Mike Clark. This is true. I do have more hair than Mike Clark. Thanks, Dave. Slightly. It's a close race. He's got more on the chin than I do. And I assume just he is a hairy man underneath that shirt, so. All right. If that's it, we're going to call it there. Thank you guys so much for being here. Again, I'll run through this in a much faster fashion when we get to the meetings on Monday. Thank you guys so much for being here. Again, I'll post this as soon as I've got it edited, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on Monday.